Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, today we're continuing in Pirkei Avot, Perek Vav, Mishnah Hey. Now, we mentioned in the past, we had this in Perek Daled, we discussed this previously, that there's three ktarim, there's three crowns. There's Keter Torah, Keter Kehuna, and Keter Malchut. Keter Shem Tov Ola Gabei, and we discussed that idea. Rambam explains, it means somebody that acquires Keter Torah, he will reach Keter Shem Tov, because people will look at him in the appropriate way when he's learning Torah, when he's acting in the way of Torah. So actually the Rambam learns that those two go together, Keter Torah and Keter Shem Tov. But what the Mishnah here tells us is, and we've discussed this briefly in the past, the Mishnah here tells us that Keter Torah, that Torah is greater, more significant, higher than those other two ktarim. And in addition to that, the way to acquire Torah requires far more than Malchut and Kehuna. So you'll tell me, well, naturally, that makes sense, because Kehuna and Malchut, you're born into it. You're born into it, you're not born into it. But the Mishnah uses a very interesting way to compare them. We're going to see is that the zchuyot that come along with Malchut, or the chumrot, and Kehuna are less than the number of ways of dvarim that are required to acquire Torah. To become a ben Torah, to really learn Torah properly, requires a lot of achana, a lot of preparation. So what we're going to show is a comparison, whereas Kehuna and Malchut, they bring along with them certain zchuyot. There are certain great things that come along, but it's less than are necessary, than are required in order to acquire Torah. So that shows us the greatness of Torah. We're not going to go through all of them regarding Malchut and Kehuna, but we'll go through 24 out of the 48 ways to acquire Torah in this Mishnah, and then tomorrow we'll go through the other 24, God willing. So let's start the Mishnah. Mishnah He. Gedola Torah yoter min ha-kehuna u'min ha-malchut. Torah is greater, more than Kehuna and Malchut. Why? Sha Malchut nikneit b'shloshim ma'alot. Because Malchut, kingship, royalty, is acquired with 30 advantages. Now, the Mishnah does not explain this, but Baruch Hashem the Mefarshim do. And it says, if you look in the beginning of Shmuel Aleph, what happened was, the Jewish people at the time were governed not by a king, but by a Navi. Who was the Navi? Shmuel HaNavi. One of the greatest Naviim to live, Shmuel HaNavi. Oh. So Shmuel HaNavi, we say Moshe ve'Aaron bekohanav u'Shmuel bekorei shemo. Shmuel, to some degree, was equivalent to Moshe ve'Aaron. So we're talking about a very big man over here. So the Jewish people approach Shmuel HaNavi and they say, we want a king like all of the nations around us. Okay. Now Shmuel didn't appreciate this. He thought that this was considered an affront. It was a chutzpah. Because basically what we're saying is, we don't want you governing us. We don't want HaKadosh Baruch Hu governing us. We want a human king to govern us. Now, there is a mitzvah of putting a king over yourself, but the way they did it was considered inappropriate. Fine. So Shmuel HaNavi turns back to them after talking to Hashem, and he says, okay, I agree to give you a king. But you should know, when I put a king over you, that king is going to have 30 advantages, 30 benefits that come with the job. And in the Psukim, he lists all of the advantages that the king will have over the Jewish people. So the Kahati brings all of them. I'm going to go through a few of them just so we understand the idea. He'll rule over you. He'll take your sons for his work, for the army, to be a chef, to do all of it. Number 3. He's going to place your sons as his chariot to drive his car, his chauffeur, right? To be his foot soldiers, balagula, to be his foot soldiers, to run in front of the chariot and call the king is coming. You understand the idea is that Shmuel HaNavi told the Jewish people is, you want a king, you're going to get it. But the point is you should realize that comes along with the job is all of these benefits he gets, he's going to use all of your assets to service himself. Now, obviously, he had to be Yerei Shamayim and all of those things. He had to be a high, very elevated person, which was Shaul HaMelech eventually was one of the greatest Jews in his generation. But the point is, the king receives 30 benefits of the job, and as the Kehati explains over here, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, the Mishnah tells us there are 30 chumrot that come along with the job as well. So I'll just tell you a couple of them as well. Melech lo dan. Melech is not allowed to be a judge. Melech is not allowed to be a judge. Velo danim oto. They can't judge the king either, because think about it for a second. Imagine the king walks into court. Which judge is going to say chayav? You're not going to say chayav. You're scared to say chayav in front of the king. You can't judge him. Lo me'id. He's not allowed to be a witness. Because if a king walks in as a witness...
It doesn't sound like a benefit also.
So it's a little bit of a benefit, also as a chumrah. If he sees something, he can't go to court and testify. There's chumrot over here. So really when it comes to the king, he has 30 benefits and 30, you could call it chumrot, or you could call it unique halachot associated with him away from other Jewish people. But the point that we're making is the king has 30 distinctions, 30 qualifications that are different than the rest of the Jewish people. I don't know. Okay, I hear that's true. Shlomo HaMelech with the two zonot. That's true. It says no, lo danim. Lo danim. So it's interesting, what Yitzchak just pointed out is true, is that Shlomo HaMelech, people used to come to him to be just David HaMelech also, by the way. And I hear, maybe that meant Lachriya. He's saying is to be like compromises or something. Very good. That might be the difference. I hear, good. So we're saying in regards to Malchut, there's 30 qualifications. Okay. Kehuna. And what about Kehuna? Be'esrim ba'arba. Now again, 24. Well, 24 what? So there's 24 gifts that the Kohanim receive that the general populace don't receive, the general people don't receive. We know there's all kinds of things. Truma, Kodshim, there's certain things that Kohanim are allowed to enjoy that those of us who are not Kohanim cannot enjoy. Okay? Now what's the point that we're making here? So there's 30, you could call them ma'alot, there's 30 benefits of being a king. There's 24 benefits of being Kohen. But as we're about to continue, this is how the Tiferet Yisrael understands it, the Torah is greater because it is acquired with 48 ways. Meaning, there's 48 prerequisites, there are 48 ideas that are necessary to have before you can fully acquire Torah. So from this we see that Torah is greater than Kehuna and Malchut. So Tiferet Yisrael points out it's not exactly a fair comparison, because for Kehuna and Malchut, we're talking about the benefits received. For Torah, we're talking about the ways to acquire, but he says the Mishnah is contrasting them to show us that Torah is even greater. Torah is even greater because in order to acquire it, you need to have these 48 ma'alot, 48 abilities, 48 advantages, 48 skills to fully acquire Torah properly. So today we're going to go through 24 in this Mishnah, and God willing, in the next Mishnah we'll go through the other 24. So let's go through. A lot of these sound very similar. Let's try to explain them as we go through. Now, Torah niknet b'arba'im u'shmoneh dvarim. The Torah is acquired in 48 ways. B'Talmud. So the first one is B'Talmud. What is Talmud? So the way the Kehati explains from the Farshim is with intense study. Not just dumb study, intense learning. And some say it means Belimud mikol adam. Like we learned earlier is Ezu chacham elomein mikol adam, somebody who learns from everyone. You learn all of the chokhmot from different people. Bishmiata ozen. The next one is a listening ear. What does that mean? Sometimes people think that what a chavruta is that I have respect for you and I let you talk, and when you're finished talking, you have respect for me and you let me talk. The problem is that shtuyot. I have to listen to what you're saying. When you're talking, I'm not just quiet so that I don't interrupt you. That's stam derech eretz. More than that is shmiata ozen. You have to listen to what's being said. You have to hear what's being said. Otherwise, what are you listening to? There's nothing. You're not accomplishing anything.
Some listen and some understand.
Right, but the point is you have to listen. That's the first place. You have to listen.
You have to understand, not only to listen. Listen, not understand.
Of course. But first you have to listen. Some people, the other guy's talking, so they're quiet. Derech eretz. But the point is, are you listening or not? The rabbi's talking, you're not listening, you're not accomplishing much. That's 2. 3, ba'arichat sifatayim. Arichat sifatayim, arichat is aroch, like shulchan aroch. Arrangement of the lips. What does it mean? is that he reviews the study many times until it's aruch, it's arranged in his mouth. He has things very clear, misudar. Again, these are all the things that are necessary to really become ben Torah, to really accomplish in Torah, so that he has it clear. So if somebody asks him a question, like the Gemara in Kiddushin tells us, somebody asks you a question on what you studied, it should be that your answer, v'shinantim, shinun, is sharp, clear, that you're able to respond quickly without any stuttering, without any stumbling. Arichat svatayim. 4. Bebinat halev, understanding of the heart. It has to be that he understands the learning and he puts it in his heart. It becomes something that he understands clearly. Besichlut halev. Now, sichlut is sechel. What does that mean? Is that he wants to plumb the depths of what he learned. Get to the omek hadavar. Get to the depths of the matter of what he learned. Fochba va'fochba. Exactly. That's 5. The Eimah. This is very interesting. The Torah was given at Har Sinai with tremendous awe, tremendous Eimah. So when you learn Torah, you also have to have the midah of Eimah, awe, in order to really absorb it. We actually have mentioned this in the past. And the way the Mefarshim explain it means Eimah v'fachad. The Eimat rabo alav. It has to be that he has a certain awe of his teacher, because if you don't have that Eimah of the Rebbe, so you don't necessarily listen so much to what he's saying, because you don't take him so seriously. It's important also. That's 6. 7, be Yir'ah. Now Yir'ah is a little bit of a different idea. It's Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim, he has to have Yirat Shamayim in his heart. Actually, is that at Har Sinai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the entire Torah given in a way of fear. It was the fire and noises. And why? So it instills a certain Yirat Shamayim on us. So in the future, we also have that midah in relation to Hashem. That is 7, Yir'ah. But Anava, this is a big one. Anava is humility, being humble. This is a tremendous thing. A little bit of a different midah, but anava means humility. Why is it humility so important? Because if I don't have humility and you're teaching me Torah, I think I know more. I know better than you. I don't listen. I don't care what you're saying. The only way you really acquire Torah is if a person has real humility. The Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit tells us, why is Torah compared to water? Because water, it always goes to the lowest possible place. It flows. So somebody that's humble, Torah goes to him naturally. Baal Ga'ava is like the top of the mountain. Water doesn't go there. The snow goes to the top of the mountain and then it melts and goes to the bottom. The Torah does not go to somebody who is Baal Ga'ava, somebody who is full of himself. Yeah. And he says another thing also. Somebody who's humble, he says more. He says he's not embarrassed to ask questions. If you don't understand something, you're going to ask. If we spoke about it before, you're going to ask if you're humble. But if you're full of how can I ask? It makes me look like I don't know something. The opposite, you have to ask. Anava is a necessary prerequisite to really acquiring Torah. That's number 8. 9, bisimcha. This is very important. Tachat asher lo avareta et Hashem Elokecha bisimcha v'tuv levav chas v'shalom. Like the Tochacha says, is an important way. In Ashchina shorela mitoch simcha. We know that Torah is only acquired with simcha. There's an idea even when a rabbi starts a class, you're supposed to make a joke. Mili de b'dichuta. Why? Because it opens people up to hearing, to absorbing. If you don't have simcha, it's very hard to accomplish in Torah. You're like, amichas v'shalom, like a dead person. Like, atzvut, it's not a good thing to be depressed, to be right. It's not a good thing, and it doesn't help you acquire Torah either. Let's go to 10. B'shimush chachamim. What is shimush chachamim? So the Gemara tells us if a person studied Mikra, which is Chumash, Mishnah, Mishnayot, but velo shimesh talmidei chachamim. He didn't serve talmidei chachamim. Are is Am Haaretz? Some shitot say is an Am Haaretz. Why is he Am Haaretz? Because what is shimush talmidei chachamim? Like the Gemara in Masechet Brachot tells us, Dola shimusha yoter milimuda. Shimush could refer to Gemara, which is the study of understanding the depths of the Mishnayot, but in a very simple way, it also means serving Talmidei Chachamim. The Gemara Masechet Brachot tells us unbelievable stories that we can't relate to today, where certain students would go watch their Rebbe in the most vulnerable of places. They would go watch their Rebbe in the bathroom. They went into the room and the Rebbe was having relations with his wife.
Why?
Crazy stuff. We don't do it today. Don't do it today.
Yeah,
we're not on the level. But why? Because when you see how they behave, Torah here, that's what they said. This is Torah. This is a part of Torah. How you behave in the bathroom, how you behave with your wife, all of these things. It's also Torah. Shimush Talmidei Chachamim is serving them personally. Because if you're serving them, you see how they behave day to day in the most intimate of situations also, which again, don't try that today. It doesn't, we're not on the level. We're not on the level for that today. When you get on the level, you understand you'll be on the level. That's Shimush Talmidei Chachamim. It's very important. Because we're not on the level. Exactly that. That's exactly why. Number 11.
מה הוא שבר שיא היום? 15 דקות הוא לא ענה. I said, listen, it's too much, something going on.
It's exciting.
15 minutes,
מה אתה אומר?
זה מה שאתה עושה עכשיו בשבילנו.
מה?
שימוש...
שימוש? לא, לי, אני לא רב.
מה אתה לא רב?
אני מלמד. מה אני אגיד לך? What do you say?
I think it's probably personal to the person and to the rabbi, no?
Right. Obviously, these people had to have a very close relationship. It's not just Stam, a
And also he
student.
told him, Pukhazi.
And he said, Pukhazi.
Go outside.
Get out of here. Kana, get out of here. Exactly. It wasn't a simple thing. But that's shimush. Shimush, by the way, in a more simple way, which we could definitely do, is you see how the rabbi behaves in whether it's in writing a get, making a funeral, doing these things. That's shimush. How do you see how they behave? Conduct in a Beit Avel, all of these things, this is shimush. Watching them, we learn how to behave in midot, we learn how to behave with people, etc. Shimush, that's a way also to acquire Torah.
Many times, Rabbi, you see Rav, a big Rav, you see one-time situation, you see it can stay in your mind forever.
Right.
How we behave, how we hold the situation.
Exactly. 11. Let's go Yud Aleph here. B'dikduk chaverim. What is dikduk chaverim? So there's two ideas that Kati brings down over here. One is that you learn from your friends. Your friends aren't just people that you have a good time with, but they're supposed to be harbe lemadati mechaverai. I learn a lot from my friends. So you learn from your friends. But some say it means that you're careful who your friends are. This is a very important idea. And it's a fascinating idea that I've observed also. We think with our children, we do a great job raising them in the house and everything is going to be great. Halavai, that should be true. You send your kids off to school, who their friends are, perhaps has even more of an impact who they're going to become, even than what we instill in them as parents. Halavai, we wish that we could give over to our kids the messages and ideas that we want to. But at the end of the day, we can't shield them from the world. The world is going to affect them. So it's very important as a parent to be aware. I have to make sure the people my kids are hanging out with, dikduk chaverim, are they good people? Is this good influence for them? And if we see chas v'shalom there's an issue, to figure out what to do in the nice way, in the right way. Dikduk chaverim, and for us personally also, it's very important too. You want to hang out with anybody and everybody, I'm not going to be influenced. Rambam already says, Adam nimshach achar svivotav. It's not, you're not impervious to that. Everybody is human, and if we're human, we're going to be influenced by our friends. If we're influenced negatively, we're not going to be able to study Torah properly. So we have to know, who is it? There is said, I think Lubavitch is big in this inyan actually. Lubavitch says is that if you're polet, you're not bolea. It's a big inyan in kashrut, but it comes out, they say is, as long as you're being mashpia outside of yourself, you're not going to absorb. That's an inyan, it's definitely something to talk about, but we have to still be careful. Who are we being influenced by? Who are we around? That's 11. 12. Uvepilpula talmidim. What's pilpula talmidim? The discussions with students. Gemara in Masechet Tanit, I mentioned this before, tells us, Habe lemadati merabotai, v'yoter michaverai, v'yoter mikulam mitalmidai. Rashi explains, why is it that you learn the most from your students? Because they're constantly asking questions. We spoke about it because they ask the most questions. Students are eager, they want to understand the limud, they're genuine, and then you say halacha and they ask you 10 questions. You have to explain to each one based on the question they're asking. So that's a way to acquire Torah. You come out with such clarity. B'pilpul talmidi. 13, Yishuv. Why is yeshiva called yeshiva? Ever thought about that? A place of study is called yeshiva. Because they're sitting down all day. That's an answer. But what's the real answer? Yeshuv adat. You can't study if you don't have yeshuv adat. It's a terrible thing. Psizut adat. Somebody that's scatterbrained. There's 100 things going on and he doesn't know how to compartmentalize is the word in English. To put everything, compartmentalize. What does it mean? Like compartment. Putting things in a box. I have this issue. Compartmentalize. What does it mean? It means I have an issue going on right now, but I'm putting it in a box in my brain somewhere, and I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal with it later. Then you have Yeshuv Adat, you could sit and study. If you don't have Yeshuv Adat, everything's inside, one is in another, and everything's mixed up, it's very difficult to study Torah and to acquire Torah. It's very important, midah, to be able to have Yeshuv Adat, organize things. Compartment, putting it in a section. You can't do that. It's very difficult to absorb your learning because everything's mixed up, you're bothered, you're tarud. Now sometimes we can't control it, but to try it's a midah we have to work on. I speak to in the Mechina, I speak to the boys a lot. They're bothered by something, whatever it is. To learn to compartmentalize. It's a midah. Not to put it away, but to deal with it at a different time when you're not studying. Good.
Like you put in one box the hummus, tchina, shawarma, chips, rice,
Exactly.
and
It's a mess.
You can't.
You can't.
Hummus, tchina,
What do you know
one
about that, Yochai?
Israeli one.
Exactly. Then no one's gonna buy it. You need it to be clear. Compartmentalize. 14. B'mikra. How do you acquire Torah? Is b'mikra, through understanding Chumash. Now this is the idea of becoming a baki. You want to really understand Torah first, you become baki in Chumash. Study Mikra, Tanakh. Learn Tanakh well so that we know it clearly. B'mishnah. Understand the Mishnayot. Not only to understand them, but to get them clear in your head. Absorb them well. That's 15. 16. B'mi'ut sheina. Because now we're going to talk about things we have to minimize in it. We spoke a little bit about this before. Pat b'melach tochal. We spoke about this a little bit.
Rambam say you gotta sleep 8 hours.
Thank you for the introduction. You're right. So mi'ut sheina. Say the mefarshim. What does it mean? Mi'ut sheina is don't sleep too much. But what is too much?
Over 8 hours.
Over 8 hours. Over 8 hours. 8 hours, Chazal say, is the standard. That's for healthy people. The Mefarshim also do speak out, though everybody can make a cheshbon in themselves. Some people, perhaps older people, for example, they naturally sleep less. Younger people perhaps sleep a little bit more. Everyone has to know for their own health and well-being, how much sleep do I need?
Shifman, אבל באמת שאלה נשאלת. אנחנו יודעים באמת אנשים צדיקים ויראי שמיים. צדיקים ישנים שעתיים, 3 ביום.
Yeah. So they decide, they made a cheshbon on nefesh, and they understand in themselves they need 3 hours. They could do that. They're allowed as long as that's what they really need. You find big tzaddikim.
Talk about the limit.
You find some people.
No tzaddik sleeps 8 hours, no way.
He doesn't have that time.
No,
He's
no,
busy. He
no.
doesn't have that time. B'mi'ut sicha. Now, what's mi'ut sicha? Sicha is just conversation, chatter. People that are busy, constantly just schmoozing with everybody and everybody, it takes away from Torah. It's nimshach. It takes you away from Torah study. B'mi'ut ta'anug. We spoke about this last week, actually. Mi'ut ta'anug means minimizing in your pleasures. If you're so busy with your pleasures and enjoyments in this world, you're not going to be focused on Torah. And when it's difficult, you're going to close the Gemara and go, go do whatever, eat the shwama, whatever it is. You go busy with other things. That's what ends up happening. Not that you can't enjoy. Mi'ut sheina, like if it's okay, like how a person eats. That is 18. 19. B'mi'ut tzchok. Tzchok is laughter. Again, the same idea, which is minimizing laughter. It's good to be happy. You need simcha. We already said you need simcha, but not to be overjoyed. The Gemara in Brachot, also in the 5th parak, if I remember correctly, says, in this world, we're not allowed to have Yimalei tzchok pinu. We're not allowed to have a mouth full of laughter, because it says, Az Yimalei tzchok pinu. In the future, in the times of Mashiach, when Hashem reveals Himself, then we'll have a mouth full of laughter. Today, you're not supposed to engage in that so much because we're still in the status of galut, of korban, etc. But again, this has to be balanced. You can't be depressed. Has to be simcha. Has to be simcha. Exactly. 20. B'mi'ut derech eretz. Now, derech eretz, we've spoken about this before. It has many different meanings in the different contexts over here. So what does it mean, mi'ut derech eretz? He has to minimize his general worldly behaviors. It could be business. It could be maybe family life. Things have to be done with sechel, with understanding. How much time are you spending at work? How much time are you spending with family? And by the way, you have to spend a lot of time with family. It's a very, very important thing. When your kids to develop, you need to spend a lot of time with your kids. That's very important. But the point is, it should be understood in measure. The erech hapayim 21 is, a person has to be patient. If a person is not patient, he cannot become a ben Torah. It's impossible. Why? Because it says in the Gemara, if he's a Talmid Chacham who becomes angry, he forgets his Torah. Becomes angry, allows Kaas to get the hold of him. He loses his Torah. He can't become a ben Torah like that. He loses it. Exactly. Kaaso. Exactly.
The person doesn't realize he's
Exactly.
becoming angry all the time.
What's that?
The person doesn't realize he's becoming angry all the time.
Well, then someone who's hopefully a friend of his should tell him.
What if he refuses to listen?
then he's not a Ben Aliyah. That's what he is. It's unfortunate. He's not a person in the ascending form. Unfortunate. You have people that they say, I am what I am and I'm not going to improve. I don't want to hang around a person like that because they can scream at me and then have no remorse. They have no charata. There's nothing. It's very difficult. We need to develop. The whole world is. Well, some people might not be aware. Yehuda's probably right. There are people, they don't realize they're chesronot. They don't.
Not chesronot, but they get hungry is coming from you.
But Yehuda's saying you might have people like that they don't necessarily realize.
How could you don't realize that you're screaming, you're bad? You know what I mean?
I've seen. You see people doing things that are wrong. You say, how could they not realize? The answer is, we have our negiot, we have our own biases.
It's getting angry in the synagogue okay to do?
Getting angry for what? For something unimportant? For sure not.
Oh, for the tefillah, for...
That's a good question. I would say probably 99% of the time it's a problem. Meaning, in order, to give an example, someone's talking in shul. If you go over to him and scream at him, you're probably not going to accomplish anything good. The only thing you'll probably accomplish is something bad. But if you go over like a mensch and you say, look, my friend, we're in Beit HaKnesset. I'm sorry to bother, but you say it in a nice way, so then you might accomplish. But getting angry, you're getting angry.
If you have kids, you want to get them into the shul, so you yell at them in the shul.
That's probably the worst thing you could do. Probably the worst thing you could do. In terms of chinuch, it's probably the worst thing. I had a conversation once with somebody. He told me a personal story. Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody once, and he told me, how can I tell you who it is? Because whatever, you know who it is.
Last week,
Can you tell the story?
in the middle of the Amidah, laughing and making noise.
Who?
My son.
Yeah.
I go like this.
Yeah.
He continue. Go like this. Continue. And I already started to burn out.
Yeah.
It's not only me, everybody around. I finished the Amidah, I continued. I took her from his ear, dragged him outside, got him out. And I feel good about it. I feel like I'm jealous for Hashem.
I'm not sure that I would agree.
You could say it's good, but I feel very good that I do.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree. Yeah.
I feel good.
Yeah.
When something is wrong, I don't feel good. I feel good.
Let me tell you a story.
You stay outside.
Let me tell you a story that I had a personal conversation with somebody. He raised his kids already, and they're grown up. He told me that the reason my kids are not coming to shul, and he pointed at somebody else and his kids are coming to shul, is because I forced my kids to sit in Beit HaKnesset when they were little, in the wrong way,
100%
and he did not force his kids to sit in shul. And his kids, and this guy told me personal about himself, his kids are coming to Beit HaKnesset, they're B'nai Torah, and unfortunately, not the same with him.
But if he do noise that destroys the Amidah for a lot of people, you feel, I think it's your responsibility to get it.
I agree with you, but I think...
It's not, no impact or else here, you know? If you tell me I'm tired, I don't want to go to shul, don't go. Whenever I feel good, come back. But sure enough, he's coming by himself. I don't force him, I never force him.
I agree with you.
I'm not going to let him make a...
So the only thing I would say is like this, Joseph. We could talk about it more later, maybe not in a public setting. I agree with you. Perhaps you need it to be, but perhaps there's a different mahalech of doing it. That's the only thing I'm suggesting.
Different way of doing it?
Perhaps. That's the only thing I would say. Perhaps. And now we could discuss. I don't want to discuss right now. It's for more personal. Yeah. Let's continue. We're up to 21. That was 21. Now 22. Belev tov. What is a lev tov, Chaver? Yosef has a lev tov. What's a lev tov?
Good heart, like your heart.
It's a very big inyan. Lev tov without anger and hatred in your heart. Who is the person that's hurt the most when we harbor resentment, we bear grudges? Who is hurt the most by that? Not the other guy. The other guy you're not doing anything to. You keep these bad feelings, bad emotions inside of you, it distracts you. Now you can't learn Torah because you're so focused on what he did to you and that bad guy and the other one. You yourself, you're creating the biggest issue for yourself. So before you learn Torah, you have to clear out the negative, the toxic emotions, the bad stuff in your heart. Then you can learn Torah. Sometimes we get so caught up in what the other one did to us and it takes so much of our brain space, we can't even learn Torah properly. Get rid of that. That's 22. 23. Be'emunat chachamim. What is emunat chachamim? We understand Moshe Rabbeinu was the Av of this, and then all of the future chachamim in each generation. We have faith that the halachot they tell us, or the psakim they tell us, the direction in life they tell us, we have emunah that they're telling us the right thing. Emunat chachamim. It's a very big deal. If I say something and then the rabbi says something, I'm probably making the mistake, not him. Now, maybe he made a mistake. It could be, but the first place is going to be probably I made a mistake. Emunat chachamim is a tremendous thing. That doesn't mean every single rabbi you have to listen to. You should have your rabbi, for sure. But you have to have emunat chachamim. And 24, finally, uvekabbalat hayisurin. This is a big inyan which is very difficult, but it means accepting yisurin. People suffer in life. Everyone has their bag. Everyone has their, what you call it, their peckle. Everybody has their thing that they suffer with. So the concept is despite my suffering, I'm still going to persevere in studying. And the Gemara says somebody that he accepts yisurin be'ahava, it's considered the tremendous level. It's a very high thing. So these are 24 of the 48. We'll get to the next 24 in the next Mishnah, Mishnah Vav. How you could acquire Torah and that are necessary to acquire Torah. Bezat Hashem will pick up with Vav tomorrow, the last 24.
But you say if you correct yourself with all